Hey, everybody. Welcome to the VO Dojo 21 Questions. I am Tish Hicks, the Master Sensei of the VO Dojo here in Burbank, California. And we are so honored and excited to welcome the one, the only, the only Joan Baker and Rudy Gaskins of
Thank you.
Hey,
voiceover and the SOVAS and amazing VO presences in the VO world for a long time. So thanks, guys. Thanks for joining us.
Tish,
you're welcome.
thank you.
So good
Absolutely.
to see you. So let's jump into our 21 questions. What's your one-word check-in for today?
Stoppable.
Stoppable. Ooh.
Unstoppable.
Oh, I was going to say, well, even
No.
unstoppable, that makes me expect it. Stoppable is really interesting to
Yeah, it
hear.
would have been. It
Sometimes,
would have been.
sometimes in some
Yeah,
moments in any given day,
that could be
we do
good.
feel
Yeah,
stoppable. So,
that could be relaxed. Who
yeah,
knows?
yeah,
But unstoppable,
unstoppable. That
which
makes
I reclaim every day for myself. So,
that cool. Unstoppable. Good. How about you, Rudy?
And my one word would be value.
Ooh, lovely. Lovely, lovely. Yeah. And where are you from? Maybe originally, maybe a journey. Where do you live
okay,
now? I guess we can put those together. Where are you from and
okay.
where do you live now?
So I am from Marin County, California, which is a
Mhm.
suburb of San Francisco. And I moved here as a teenager.
Wow.
And I moved here to dance. And where here is New York City.
Hmm.
I live in New Jersey, right across from actually where we work. We work in Manhattan. And
Hmm.
you can see our apartment if you look towards Jersey, you can see it. So it's very close. So
Yeah.
I live in New Jersey, I work in Manhattan, and I'm from San Francisco, California.
Yeah. Wow. How about you, Rudy?
And I am from the capital of the United States of America.
Mm-hmm. Excellent.
And I came here for college back in some years ago. And I live with Joan Baker in West New York, New Jersey.
That's
Yeah.
fantastic. One of my students recently said where she's from was from the late 1900s.
Oh,
And I
because
was
she
like,
was thinking reincarnation.
no, no, because we're from another century. Like when we were born in another century.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh,
It's like, oh wow, when you put it that way,
when you
boy.
put it that way, right? Just like if you asked me my age, I'd say indefinite.
Lovely. Lovely. Yeah, very good. Very good. Where would we know your voices from?
Um, well, voiceover wise, I actually now focus more on SOVAS because that takes every bone. And slowly
Hmm.
I kind of stopped performing more and started more working, behind the scenes of SOVAS and creating like we were talking off air. It takes a lot of building. But I also teach and I still audition sometimes and I still work sometimes,
Hmm.
voiceover wise. But basically, I am focused on SOVAS, which actually takes every bone.
Right. Well, and that's also how you're getting your voice in the world, creating
It
this space for
is.
all of us to come together.
It
And of
really
course,
is. It's
if you
actually,
happen to be at the uh, President Clinton Library in Park,
oh,
then you would hear Joan's voice because she's on one of their permanent displays there,
That
along with President Clinton, narrating how that institution came about.
oh, that's cool. That
Clinton
sounds like
Library.
something,
Yeah.
something. Yeah.
I'm
Cool.
definitely in the Smithsonian. I'm also in Clinton Library, and I'm at the Muhammad Ali Center.
Oh, yes, yes,
Because
yes.
I had done a series of promos for promoting the Muhammad Ali Center that landed on the Olympic Games.
Very cool.
That's
Very
when they were
cool.
playing them. Yeah, I mean, I've done so many things, and some things still exist, like Grand Theft Auto.
Mm-hmm. A little thing.
I've
Yeah.
done many, many Grand Theft Autos.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm actually trying to post something because they put together the litany, because I played a anchor that was excellently funny. So they put together a string of all the spots that I did.
Oh,
So
very
I actually am trying to create it so I can put it on Instagram, but I'm so busy, I can't I can't stop and do it. But
Yeah,
it's quite a collection, that I
yeah.
will say.
Excellent,
Now,
excellent.
for
Yeah.
me, I'm a producer. So you'd only know my voice if I directed you on some spots, of which
Ah,
I've done many. So you'd know my voice as that voice
Right.
coming into the booth through the microphone saying, wait a minute, can you slow that down a little bit?
right, right.
Uh,
Are there particular projects that you've worked on or campaigns that
uh,
you've worked on that
yeah, well, I actually won an Emmy Award for the Olympic Games,
mm-hmm,
and that was 2000
mm-hmm.
and in Sydney. So I love to cite that one because the Olympic Games is just such a standout event, and the personal experience of doing that was just so incredible to be
Mm-hmm.
there in Sydney with the games and all. But as a producer, you work on so many projects across the board, and I had an advertising agency for a while before we sold the name
Mm-hmm.
of it. And so we worked with many different companies,
Mm-hmm.
Lexus and American Express and Delta Airlines. I mean, the list just goes on, small projects and large projects. So so my voice print, in a sense,
Right.
metaphorically, it's on those projects.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
but it's
Absolutely.
always the company's brand that's out front, and that's what I'm always trying to manage.
Yeah, one of
Yeah.
the things we say here at the dojo always from the very beginning is there is no they, there's only we. And this encapsulates that, right? That when we
Mhm.
get to work with a producer who's working with the client, who's, the client is putting something out to the world, we're all working on that together. And how we
Yes.
approach it that way, then there's no separation. So,
Yeah.
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 It's an ecosystem.
Yeah, yeah, very much so. Very much so. How long have you been doing voiceover on whichever side of the glass you've been doing it?
Oh, since 1991.
1991. Excellent.
I
Yeah.
got signed with Don Buchwald and Associates, and they heard my demo reel. And at the time, my demo reel back then probably wouldn't work right now because
Mm,
it would probably people would probably think, oh, she's kind of all over the map. But I did a lot of cartoon voices
hmm
and a couple of my regular speaking voice. But when you listen to it, it sounded like they were different people as opposed like Sybil. No, I'm kidding. It sounded like there was different people. You wouldn't think it was from one person.
hmm
And so there was something when I first started that I didn't know anything about the business. I didn't know, how it worked in any way. So there wasn't really that pressure. So it was more creative. And by the way, in 1991, you could be more creative. Now it has to be uniform in a very specific way. But back then, like I said, most of the spots were me doing different cartoons and
hmm
then a couple of my regular speaking voices.
hmm
And it really got me far, that demo. Not only did it get me signed to Don Buchwald and Associates, but I ended up being on Don Imus's show because of it.
Oh, wow.
I ended
hmm
up booking jobs in promos and commercials and in narration from that demo and
Mm,
cartoons from that demo.
hmm
With one demo as opposed to I had five
Right, right,
different
right.
genres. It was all in one demo. That
hmm
wouldn't fly today, but it did fly then.
Yeah,
Thankfully.
interesting. Interesting. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Good, good, good. Yeah. And how about for you, Rudy?
What was the question again?
How long have you been doing voiceover on
Oh,
whichever
how
side of the
long?
glass?
Okay, so yeah. So I started in 19, see, it's in the 19s. Wow.
I
Uh,
think it's 1994 is when you first directed voiceover in 1994.
was it
Mm-hmm.
That's the year we met.
1994? So that was
Mhm.
okay. So that was I was at ABC News, and it was interesting because it really wasn't uh Rebirth, because I had been doing documentaries for PBS, and while we had voice actors to do narration, the executive producers managed that. So I didn't have
Right,
to touch it.
right,
Once I went over to ABC News, I had to direct both the celebrity talent and the voice actors that we brought in for promos and
right.
EKGs.
Mm-hmm.
video kits. And
Mhm.
those, I mean, people like Diane Sawyer and Peter Jennings, the late Peter Jennings and the late Barbara Walters, but and all the other ABC anchors, but most of the folks that we were dealing with were the everyday journeymen, the voice
Mhm.
actors, legendary voice actors like Steve Newman and Fred Collins, Brian Carney. Um, they were extraordinary, Don LaFontaine. And
Mhm.
these people, they knew the job so well that I didn't really have to direct them. They
Right, right, right.
understood the process so well. So they didn't need a lot of directing. Thank God I was smart enough not to push that. But what I did do was I asked them all to direct me so that I could become a better director. I
Ooh.
asked them all to put me in the booth. I would do that one at a time with them whenever there was spare time. And I
Wow.
learned so much from the notes they would give me. And they enjoy getting the director in the booth
That's
and putting him through his paces.
brilliant. That's
They'd
brilliant.
never done that before.
Yeah. So that was a real
Yeah.
rebirth, a real origin story of which I have several origins. So I'm like a butterfly that keeps being born.
This is great. Who's your current team? And I mean, obviously, you guys are a team together, but I always think
Yes.
it's an interesting. I think it's an interesting thing to note that, it's always just us, but we never do it alone. And as our businesses go
Absolutely.
along, we build our team around. So it's always interesting to hear who is your team in whatever that you're getting done in this world. No, because
Well,
I
I
think
love
also
that.
I
Yeah.
also think sometimes you're like, Joan and Rudy, how do they do it? And
No, it's
I
true.
know.
We think
And
that
I'm
too.
always
Like,
pushing back.
how
A
the
lot of people
hell
just don't
do we
realize
do
that
it?
there are other people involved. First of all, we have a board of directors, and we
Wow.
Uh-huh.
meet with the board of directors several times a year. And then there's always emails flying back and forth,
Mhm.
and
Right.
uh, and they make a huge difference. I mean, one of our board members is a high-powered New York attorney, and that makes a huge difference when you get into all sorts of areas, legalities, where you're not quite sure what the right move is. And his
Mhm.
firm has also taken us on as pro bono clients. So that has made a big difference that we don't have to run out and hire a lawyer every time we have a question.
Right.
Right,
Uh,
Right.
that's huge.
the
Mhm.
board of directors also just, some of them are voice actors as well.
Mhm.
They just bring a lot of insight and point of view that we wouldn't necessarily have.
Mhm.
Uh, and so
And
they're an
emotional
incredible,
support and emotional
yeah.
support too.
Mhm.
And
They've
they're all
talked us
very,
off the ledge a couple times.
yeah, no,
There's
emotional support is critical, I think.
Mhm.
And there's
Critical.
also, and I would really encourage people to go to our website and look up international ambassadors. We have about 12 international ambassadors who
Mm.
help us localize our message across different languages and countries, and who help give us insight about how the industry works in their countries. And it
Yeah.
makes it possible for our awards program to manage multiple languages in a way that's respectful and authentic to those cultures.
Beautiful. I know one of our Dojo members, Jimmy Bancoli, was just at the African Voices conference
Oh,
again,
Yes.
and it just sounds like amazing, amazing event. Yeah.
we sponsor
Yeah.
that. We're
Hmm.
one of the sponsors.
One of the
Yeah,
sponsors. Yeah.
it is amazing event. It is truly
Yeah.
amazing.
We've been
Well,
working
and
with them since the beginning.
Hmm.
yeah, I'll also note a couple of other people that are on our team. We have a great assistant.
Hmm.
Um, her name is Kayla, and she is kind of like, a nerd, a computer, so something that I'm not. She
Hmm.
has all these abilities that just for me and Rudy, we're like, oh my God, thank God. Well, Rudy
Hmm.
is a computer. He doesn't consider himself a computer nerd, but I do.
Hmm.
Like he has the aptitude to understand this. And also he talks to a lot of IT people,
Hmm.
that we have. I couldn't without sounding like I'm in kindergarten. So but we have an assistant that's critical for us. Also, our sponsors. Our
Hmm.
sponsors are amazing and they are amazingly supportive. They're not just sponsors, they actually are helping us and assisting us with different ideas, with executing different things, with coming up with ideas. They keep us on track. They'll email us and say, this deadline's coming up, that deadline's coming up for, either them or us. So they're incredibly helpful. And that's
Yeah.
kind of a surprise. That's kind of a surprise. Although we love people and we love our sponsors, it's still kind of a surprise how engaged they are with us and how much they have our backs.
Yeah.
And that's just thrilling to me.
Yeah.
That's just
And
thrilling.
I
And
know
I,
just say a word about Kayla, who Joan mentioned as our assistant. She's only been with us for a year now, and she really is an extraordinary young lady
yes,
with lots of gifts and wicked
yeah,
smart, smarter than both of us put together.
yeah,
And she's been writing for our newsletter. She's been writing, our newsletter goes out every 2 weeks. She's been writing an article called Confessions of an Intern. Uh, in voice acting, of course. And so she's been able to, galvanize her experience, everything that she's learning about voice acting from working with us. That's her purpose in coming here. She wanted to intern someplace where she could learn voice acting. And she shares that through through interviews with some of the international ambassadors and other voice actors that she discovers out in the world. So she's been a real godsend.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
she has.
Yeah.
And we
We're
haven't even
really great.
mentioned the 50 to 60 people that we hire as freelancers throughout the year to create
Yeah,
these events.
yeah,
These are big events, the Voice
Right.
Arts Awards Gala and the conference. They're big events that take a lot of people in all
Mhm.
the
yeah.
different, categories, roles. So they're a big part of our team as well.
That's
But
a
you know
big,
what,
yeah.
Tish, there's about 100 people involved behind the scenes with that's voiceover and with the Voice Arts Awards. There's some crossover, but they're completely different
Hmm.
people. And both Rudy and I manage that.
Right.
So that's why it can get very, very intense. And it's like the domino effect. If something comes in that day that we have to focus on, then the domino effect. And
Exactly.
that's constant
Hmm.
and constantly jockeying and juggling, you
Right.
know. And
Right.
I feel grateful, Tish, because Rudy is like my favorite person in the whole world. And to have him as the biggest love and support and to assist me in being unstoppable with our day, there
Hmm.
is nothing like it. So to me, he is my biggest support that I
Yeah.
could have ever dreamt of. I mean, seriously. And I used to dream about it.
And so
Before
it is.
I met him, I
Yeah.
used to dream about it.
Vice
That's
versa.
yeah. Well, and I
Yeah.
think that's also a testament to both of you because, often working together and being partners can be
Yeah.
a really
Yes.
intense thing. You guys seem to make it
Yes.
just just be part of everything that you
It's
are and everything that you're
it's
creating. It
odd,
shines
I
through.
think. I mean, I didn't know that I would have a partner like that, although maybe in the back of my mind I thought about it, but I just wanted a partner. You know, I just wanted a date Saturday night. But I mean, this was my wildest dream come true.
Mhm. Mhm.
Rudy and how close we are and how consistent that is and how that grows on its own accord, but it also grows because we're focused on the quality of our relationship. I'm telling you, I wouldn't have thought that would have happened to me.
Yeah.
And I'm just so grateful that it turned out that way. I'm someone before I met Rudy, I'm someone that I worked a lot on myself and issues as
Mhm.
even as a woman, just issues that would block a love coming in.
Mm.
So I had to really get down and dirty with that, of course, with someone that was smarter than me on
Mm.
on these topics. But I really had to let myself feel hurt, let myself feel unwanted, unloved, all that. And I had to go through that in order to come out on the other side so that I could recognize when someone walked into my life, that was
Wow.
it.
Yeah.
I
So
wouldn't have recognized Rudy as it if I hadn't worked on myself.
yeah. And thank you for sharing so truly and vulnerably because that is when we open our hearts, then there's room for others to come in. That's
Yeah.
really, really
And what's
powerful.
interesting about what you just said is that we may think our hearts are open, but when you get down to the work of it, you realize how blocked
Mm-hmm.
and how some of your thinking is the block to that
Mm-hmm.
love to come in.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the part I addressed to myself for many years. And
Mm-hmm.
then da 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 boom, he
Breakthrough.
there he was with the clipboard in his hand at Embassy Suites.
Amazing, amazing. And then that I think that opens up to we'll keep
Yeah,
on track with questions, but that also opens up to life harmony, which is something else we talk about at the dojo. It's not
yeah,
work-life balance because balance is one
yeah,
thing at one point. Like who
yeah.
can do that? But it's harmony,
Harmony.
and then
That's it.
life harmony, not work life harmony. But
Totally,
Wow.
when we
Tish.
have this openness, then the people can come, and then we're working authentically, and then the work can come. But when we're like
Yeah,
work,
right.
there's no room for anything to come in.
And yet when you're right, you think you're open.
Right, right, right. Yeah, because you're so
No,
focused, right?
yes, but
Yeah.
life tends to be your religion.
Mm,
And so when things show up and how you really respond, not how you think or how you would like to or how you might imagine to, but how you really do is your
mm,
religion.
mm.
That's where you're at.
Right.
And sometimes it ain't pretty. It's not pretty.
Yeah. Woo,
Right?
this is good. Oh, I love where the 21 questions take us. Um,
Yeah.
no, on something completely that seems like who cares at this point, but after going there, what what is your technical setup? I see your whisper room behind you. I also think it's really great for everyone to know that we met, I'm in my whisper room, you have yours behind you, somebody else might have a studio bricks, but that's where you are now, and that is what
Mhm.
is you're working with professionally, and then maybe what were other incarnations? A quick
Actually, as far as the work, we have Gramercy Post right down the hall from us, and we're
brilliant.
buddies. And so we work through their studio. They're a full-blown
Brilliant.
production
Yeah.
house. So
Yeah.
it's rare that we have to deal with doing any work in the whisper room.
Oh,
It all
fantastic.
happens. It all
Yeah.
happens in a full-blown studio. Uh,
I coach
Gramercy.
here. I mean, when I
Okay,
used to
right,
do
right,
in person, now it's all on Zoom, but
right.
in
Mhm.
person, everyone worked in the booth.
Yeah, yeah.
So
That's
that's really what I used it for. And a couple of jobs where I was the main promo person,
hmm
and they were outside of New York. So that came in. Rudy would actually engineer and direct, as well
hmm
as, the television networks that I would work for.
hmm
Sometimes it was easier to do it in there, but mostly, like Rudy said, Gramercy Post. Plus, where we are is the Ed Sullivan Theater Building where they
Oh,
filmed Stephen
cool.
Colbert, and
Yeah.
also before that, David Letterman. So
Right, right.
Entertainment Tonight is actually right next door. So,
Excellent.
and they also have a booth and,
Mhm,
cameras and all that.
mhm.
So we're kind of surrounded with tech, tech
That's
people, audio
fantastic. Yeah,
people. Yeah.
And let them deal with it.
Yeah.
exactly. Back like in the
Yes.
olden days.
Yeah.
Back in the golden days. Yeah,
Guys,
Yeah,
yeah.
every
you know
now and
what
then
the-
you hear voice actors say something on Facebook or Twitter about, oh, it's great today to be out in an actual booth working with the director. Well, we have that all the time.
Yeah.
That's brilliant. That's
Yeah. And
excellent.
I'm so thrilled.
Yeah, no, it makes a huge difference. It makes a
It
huge difference. I think
does.
one of the biggest shifts in being on the journey for as long as we have, that
Yeah.
we've had many
That is
iterations,
one of the
and I
biggest
think it
shifts.
yeah, so that yeah. So how we've got a little bit of origin story, but how did you get started in voiceover? So you came as a dancer
I
and
did.
a
Yeah.
demo, and then yeah,
Well,
but what would you say you're like? How did you get started?
I didn't know voiceover was a career. So,
Mm-hmm.
and I have to say this. that would work for me. If I don't, sometimes when I'm beginning something and I don't know the rules, it's kind of like beginner's luck. So I didn't know the rules. I just knew that I wanted to be in show business, but I also wanted to make a living at it. And it wasn't that easy when you're a dancer and there's, it's not like dance today. There's so many opportunities now. There weren't a lot of opportunities then. Basically Broadway. And that's not like, oh, I'll audition with 50 other people. I know I'll be in a Broadway show soon and get paid. So
Mhm.
I knew that I could do cartoon voices naturally. That's what I knew. And I saw an ad in Backstage Magazine, and I had just done a cable show. And on the cable show, without thinking voiceover or knowing anything about it, I was doing a character and I was talking about the nightclub life in New York City, kind of like a Cyndi Lauper before she came on the
Mhm.
scene. And afterwards it got so much attention, and the voice that I did got so much attention, and this
Mhm.
was on cable before cable was cable.
Right, right,
It
right.
looked like cable. It looked like a TV studio with the light swinging.
Like between
So
two ferns.
but it got so much attention and the host was just ecstatic, right? So I went after that show, I went to the manager's house, my manager's house. I happened to be looking through Backstage. I saw an ad for voiceover and it said cartoon voices, character, and your regular voice. So I went to the person and her name was Joni. And I thought, you can't go wrong with someone named as you, Joni. So I went to Joni. I ended up taking 4 lessons. By the way, I loved her to pieces until she passed away a couple years ago. But I went to her. I did four. I happened to do 4 lessons, and I did that demo reel I was talking about. So again, all I knew is I know how to hustle. So I started at the very top in terms of talent agencies. I went there in person. I delivered everything. Within the day, I had 3 talent agencies that said they wanted to sign me, and one I had or interviewed with on the spot. So I
Mhm.
knew I knew something was going to happen, and I was just so thrilled about it because it was like I couldn't get arrested before.
Mm.
So this was something that, I'd been the horse at the gate for a long time, and I felt like the gate was finally opened.
Ooh, yeah, I can feel that.
Yeah.
Feel that.
Yeah.
And then, and then uh, I think as a teacher now, having had,
Mhm.
I think as a teacher now, like you say that origin story and like, oh, it's that easy, and it is like you have to keep on this blend of
You do.
it can be, and also it's a much different industry now,
Yeah,
and
it is
Yes.
now. But then I was
and
hustle city
but
because
that's
again,
the thing
I'd
of
been the horse that had been behind the gate for so long that by
mhm,
the time the gate opened, it's kind of like my instincts knew what to do.
ready,
And I
yeah,
was not afraid.
there you go, there you
I
go,
was not
yeah,
afraid. I learned a lot from dance, and I was determined
mm,
not to
yes,
take the patterns that had developed from dance. I was determined not to take them into voiceover. So it's kind of
yeah.
like I started afresh.
Yeah, so you had the discipline, you had the grit, you had the
Yes.
everything,
Yes.
and then you also had the fears and the disappointments, PTSD or whatever
Yes.
comes in
Oh,
when we put our
yes.
hearts into everything and it may not
Yes.
come through. And then you were able to just, oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah, I was not
That's
going to
powerful.
let the disappointments, the negativity, dance. I don't know about this very moment, but dance tended to be, kind of like, you look like shit. You better do it better. It kind of
Mhm.
was very hard nosed like that. I was determined not to bring that into to my travels in
Yeah,
voiceover
yeah, that's
for those
amazing.
feelings. Yeah.
Yeah. And Rudy,
Gas.
we got Gaskins. We got the
Yes.
ABC part, but you said there was other parts that made up your origin story as well.
Yeah, well, I would point to my first major job out of college. So I
Mhm.
went to NYU studying film and television, and my goal was to direct movies. And
Mhm.
out of college, of course, no one's hiring you as a director right away. And I mean, it's rare. Like I,
Mhm.
I, s-
Yeah.
I would cite Spike Lee because we went to school. He was in the grad department when I was in the undergrad
Oh,
department,
cool.
and Spike's focus was to direct. He wasn't waiting to be hired. He was just
Mhm.
directing. He just came out of school and just said, "I'm going to make something." So that is a way to go.
Well,
Uh,
he
Yeah,
he he cracked that open in a lot of ways. I mean, it
yeah,
wasn't that
yeah,
was
absolutely.
unheard of, but he was really at the forefront of
especially for
that time,
Black
cracking
people.
it,
Yeah,
Yeah,
especially, yeah.
yeah,
especially given that he was African American for sure.
Hmm.
yeah.
And so I took the route of let me go get a job working with filmmakers. And I joined the editing union and
Hmm.
by getting a job on Francis Coppola's Cotton Club as an apprentice editor.
Oh,
And I'm
wow.
working in a building here in New York. 1619 is the building called the Brill Building. And
Mm,
that's
very
where
famous.
everything, yeah, anything that was happening in post-production in the movie business was happening in that building. It
Hmm.
was the Mecca. And so
Yeah.
all the top directors were there. You know, Scorsese was walking the halls, Woody Allen was walking the halls, you name it. That was the environment I was in. And I was, you know, a lowly apprentice, which is, you know, to my parents and my family, wow, you're going to work with Coppola today? And that was really what it was. So that was like a huge break to me.
Yeah.
Even though in the business, I was at the bottom of the totem pole. You know, I'm cleaning film in the back room. I'm not editing the film.
Mm,
And but you're working with these people and you're learning a great deal. And I grew up in the ranks there until I became a full editor. And I turned around one day and I said, wait a minute. The goal was to direct. Why am I still editing 4 years later? And
mm,
so I kind of did what Spike did at that point. I said, I'm just dropping all of this and I'm going to come up with something to direct. And I did a documentary about an ex Black Panther who had since moved to the rural suburbs
oh,
and
wow.
had a big home there. He completely left the city. And I said, I wanted to challenge him on his choice and see what kind of documentary that would make. So I
Mm,
did that documentary, and a woman saw that from PBS. She saw the documentary. I shared it with her, and they hired me. They asked me if I wanted to become an associate producer on a documentary that was going to travel the world
wow.
for a full year. And I
No,
thought,
no,
here I
couldn't
go again.
possibly.
I'm not going to be directing. I'm going to be an associate producer. But
Mm,
the idea of traveling around the world, it was like, you know,
yeah.
something you could hear on a game show or something. Rocks. And so I said, I can't give this up. And so I did that. I went to PBS and I did that project. So that was another huge breakthrough and,
Mhm.
you know, break, so to speak, that set me up for everything that I'm doing now. Those two periods set me
Mm.
up for everything I'm doing now.
Yeah. Ooh, I just got a shiver. That's so like ooh, that's so exciting. And sometimes the path that we intend is not the path that that unfolds, but the right path reveals itself.
Yeah,
So
yes,
I'm like
Tish.
I've got like goosebumps all over.
Yes.
And the
We
other
we have both followed our passions. That doesn't mean it necessarily meant our dream came true, but we have definitely followed our passion.
Yeah, yeah, because I think that, the dojo we talk about, we align people with the power and possibility of their voice. Because if you're aligned with that voice, then whatever happens, whatever opportunities
That's right. That's right.
happen and come to you.
That's
And
right.
the other thing that I hear, Rudy, in your journey is one, super quality education, and then being in the place where it happens, having the beginner's mindset of understanding the humility, the curiosity, the determination of beginner's mindset in the
Mhm.
context of being at the place where the people are doing the things, which I
Yeah.
think that's the heart of that's voiceover. Like come meet the people who are doing
Yeah.
the things. And
You're
then
right.
and then there's
You're
also
right.
diversification of you knowing things from the inside out because when that you're a better producer because you know editing, that that you're a better director because you know editing and producing. But the more we have that diversification and understanding from as many of the angles as makes sense to us, right? Because Joan, you don't do the
Yes.
computer stuff, then don't do the computer stuff. But the stuff that did resonate and the experiences that you did have really creates that very diversified
Mhm.
experience that you bring to everything that you do. So,
Tish, I do want to add, I actually have to do some of the computer stuff.
well, we all kind of
I
do.
have to actually have to do some.
Exactly, exactly. Here's a great question, and I'm so excited to hear what your exploration of this question is. What are the three top ingredients in your success?
That is a good question. Uh, well, definitely passion.
Mm-hmm.
There is no question about it because if I didn't have it, trust me, I would be long gone,
Mm-hmm.
right? Also, I think an ingredient has no question has been discipline.
Yes.
In other words, when I say I'm going to do something, I do it. If something gets in the way of me not doing it, then I get back on the horse and recommit to doing it. So
Mm-hmm.
my word in the matter counts. My
Mm-hmm.
integrity around the things that I say I'm going to do, I do. And I do it. It's not just for others to trust me, although of course that's what will happen, but it's also for me to trust myself because that's really important.
Mm-hmm.
Self-trust is very important.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so that's why sometimes if people let me down, I'm not so, I don't fall apart or I'm not devastated because I trust myself.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I don't put expectations on others too because I trust myself. I don't have
Mm.
to project. So passion, discipline, and
And
I know it sounds, typical, but I say risk. I
mm,
did things, I mean, there's things I've never even talked about that I definitely took a risk. Whether it worked or not is a different story, but that
mhm,
is definitely a part of my story. There's so many stories I've never told where I put myself in the hot seat and took a risk to see if it would click or not. And I
mm,
can't say it always did, but when it
right.
did, it was huge. So
And the
I'd
thing
say
that
those two
was
things.
consistent was that you kept taking the risk.
Yes,
That's what, yeah, that's
yes,
powerful.
yes,
So fantastic.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And I also sometimes had other people help me take the
Mhm,
risk. Like I
mm,
might have needed their help, not emotionally, but maybe they needed to do something that would
mhm,
create the thing I was trying to take a risk about. So
mhm.
I've also had other people's help
To
with some of the risk
collaboration.
taking. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Those are
yeah,
great. Those are great ingredients. Those are
yeah.
fantastic. How about you,
Absolutely.
Rudy? What would you say your words would be?
Well, for me,
Your
the first one would
ingredients?
be the joy of the work.
Mm,
The There was a moment back in college when I had a chance to conceive and write and direct a film. It
mhm,
was a 20-minute film called I Want to Play. And the when I found myself on the set with 30 people at my beck and call, working like like a Swiss watch, and everything was happening, and I was calling cut and calling action and really doing this thing that I had dreamt of. The joy was so palpable, so
mm,
immense. I never forgot it. Never forgot it. And to this day, I can go back to that and feel that sense of joy just in that moment alone. So I always took that with me in terms of whatever it was I wanted to do. I wanted to get to that point when I'm doing it. And
Lovely. Yeah.
so there was the joy of the work always kind of led me. And then there is, of course, passion and perseverance, I would say, are
Mm.
Yeah.
the other two.
Hmm. Joy, passion, and perseverance.
Yes.
And then
Mhm.
passion is in both of your hearts, so that it
Mm,
makes sense that
yes.
you love what you love what you do together, you love each other.
Yes.
That makes sense.
Yes.
Yeah. Ooh,
Yes,
good
Tish. Yeah.
ingredients. Good ingredients. I think
To make it tasty.
we might have had this answered, but this is always an interesting question because the definition of it is to be determined. But what was your big break, if you think of things in that way?
I know what
As
you're
I was
saying.
saying
Okay.
earlier, the
Yeah, go ahead, honey.
you sure?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm all
So
ears.
I did have a lot of breaks, and one break would always lead to another break. And,
Mhm.
doors just kept opening, sometimes closing in the process, but also opening. And the one of the big breaks that came was Joan and I putting together an advertising agency called Push Creative.
Hmm.
And this is after she was doing voiceover the whole time, full gangbusters. I was always on the production side with the television network. And at one point, we decided, let's just do our own thing, primarily because for me, working with the television network, I was always dealing with the same brand day in and day out. And it starts to get old. You want to
Yeah.
experience other kinds of products and
Mhm.
services that you can bring to life. And so when you set up an agency, you get to go kind of pick and choose. You go to the
Mhm.
clients you want to work with and try to make that happen. And so that was a huge break when we started that company and realized that, our entire paradigm had shifted. For
Ooh, yeah.
me, there was no longer the possibility of just showing up and there was always work on the table, always a stack of papers to go through. It was, you got to go out and create it.
Ooh,
You're not
yeah.
going to go, you have to go out and show somebody that you have a talent that can bring something
Mhm.
to to what they're doing that they may not have thought of. They weren't
Right.
necessarily canvassing for it. And that was the life of being an entrepreneur and running a business. And of course, with that comes a whole host of other competencies that you have to develop because you
Hmm.
didn't learn bookkeeping in school. You didn't think that was going to be a thing you had to do.
Right. Right.
And
Right.
you didn't learn about customer service. You didn't
Mhm.
consider that something going to have to do. And bringing on a team to work under you who was now depending on your success to have a
Yes.
salary for themselves. So
Yes.
you've got these other responsibilities. If I don't do this, what happens to Bob and Susan? So
Exactly. Yeah.
there's all these other kinds of responsibilities there. But again, leading with joy, that always kept me in it. I believe it always kept Joan in it also. But having that company gave us
Yeah.
a kind of
So that
autonomy.
so that crossing the threshold into entrepreneur as creative, successful creatives, running, doing things with and for other people's business, crossing the threshold into entrepreneurship was a big break.
Yeah. It
Yeah.
was a break. It was a break in the sense that not only did we have a way to continue our livelihood, but it was
Hmm.
from a whole different perspective of
Yeah.
how one leads their life and how you experience it.
Yeah, that's powerful. That's powerful. How about for you, Joan? I would imagine there's some of that because you were on that journey as
Yeah,
well.
definitely. Well, absolutely what Rudy said in terms of um, where he thought the breaks were, because I
Mhm.
was there too. So I
Mhm.
absolutely agree. I think there's been a couple of breaks in my life, and one of them I think was Secrets of Voiceover Success. I think that
Mhm.
was the break that led to what we're doing today. Had
Yeah.
I not, I was in a class, I came up with an idea. Rudy helped me hone the idea. I did a business plan around it. That class doesn't teach you how to write or anything, but the class, there was a project that you had to do, and it was very specific, the guidelines. So I created Secrets of Voiceover Success. I had the first round of book was 19 voiceover actors.
Mhm.
I interviewed them, but the way it reads is like a narrative. So Secrets of Voiceover Sex, the entire thing was such a risk, although I didn't see it that way because I felt like this was something that I wanted to give back. So it didn't feel
Mhm.
like a risk. But when I look back, it was because the people that were actually in the book, some of them didn't know me. The
Mm.
people that I enrolled in the book, some of them did know me, some of them didn't know me, and I didn't know them. I just knew their names.
Mhm.
And I found out later that their concern was that I wasn't going to get a publisher. So some people
Mm.
actually said no because they thought I wasn't going to get a publisher, but they didn't know me. So they didn't get it. They didn't get it. So the people that ended up sticking with me, they ended up being the ones that believed in this vision that I had.
Mhm.
And I was the motor. So
Mhm.
I learned a lot of lessons in it, but and sounds like an odd learning of a lesson, but one of the things was whenever anyone had a concern or whenever anyone had a doubt, I did not think of it that way. I just dove in and and gave of myself in whatever way I could to have them feel better about what was going on, because everyone was kind of in the dark. No one knew the process of getting a book published. I didn't either. Again, beginner's luck. I didn't know the rules. I just knew that I had a palpable business plan and a palpable 3 chapters that I would send to the different publishers. All I knew is it was on fire and I wanted everybody to read it.
Yeah.
So, because it was so good and it was so juicy and there was no book like this. So I did everything that I could. There was a couple things I said that I would not do. So I said to everyone, I will not change the title of the book, because the title of the book was called Room with a Voice, meaning that we were all in a booth by ourselves with just us and our voices, right? There was a subtitle that was definitely pinned to voiceover, but the name of the book was called Room with a Voice, and everybody loved it. And everyone signed up, partly because that title they loved. The only thing the publisher said when I got one was, I love everything you did, but we have to change the title. So I was saying yes to the title change, yes to people's needs. Nothing was a pain, nothing was a worrisome. I just said yes. I kept saying yes to everything. And it really opened my eyes, and it really opened the doors to what was possible with Secrets of Voiceover Success. And still to this day, I get emails, I get phone calls, texts. People still really appreciate the book, or they just bought it and they felt like they really resonated with it. So I believe that happened because I was a yes to the universe. I was a yes to everything that was going on, and nothing I attached to it was a pain in the ass, worrisome, or I can't do this, or I give up. Nothing like that. And I still believe that those lessons that I worked through, I still believe they're working today and exactly what we're doing, because we still have to adopt that attitude.
Yeah.
And now we have to adopt it even more. And I feel like that Secrets of Voiceover Success paved the way for that.
That is so powerful. And I love that in the little bit of time we've shared together here, you've shared things where it could have been like, oh, that was my big break. I walked into the agency, they said yes. But the thing that are the big breaks for you are the breaks that you created for yourselves.
And that we had to work our
Exactly.
asses off and work through fears and work through doubt and how we were going to juggle this particular issue, that particular door closed. That's the breakthrough.
Yeah. And
That's the breakthrough.
and Rudy, you also said paradigm shifts too. That
Yes.
that's something really powerful. That's amazing, brilliant.
And you don't always have control over those shifts. You have to adapt to them.
Right. And work your ass off to make
Yeah.
sure you get through them, right? Yeah.
Yes.
To create
Yeah.
create the bridge you're
But
creating.
both Rudy and I have stories of times when we were younger that something actually came into our life, but we didn't have the courage to take the risk to do it.
Ooh,
There
that's
are stories like,
the other side. Yeah.
and I'll tell you quickly one of many, but one. This is kind of a creative one. So when I was younger and I was doing actually it was before I started doing my Josephine Baker act at Chez Josephine, I had done this collage and back in the 80s. This was back in the late 80s. So Interview magazine was big. Andy Warhol was big. He created the magazine. So I created a project, just myself thinking it up, and I had other people help me execute it. But I created a project where I took the back. There was the back of the magazine. An interview it was done in a very specific way. So I took that very specific way, and I did all these different characters of people that related to Andy Warhol.
Oh,
Right.
cool.
And so I did this. I had
These are
someone
visual
help me write it.
representations where she played each
What?
role.
Yeah.
I was just clarifying that these are pictorials, visual representations of you playing different roles.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yes. And some of them were truly hilarious, and they really did connect to Andy Warhol. So actually I dropped it off that weekend. Andy Warhol died. I remember. I was
Oh,
like,
wow.
what? He died. But Interview Magazine called me that Monday. And they offered me not just a job at Interview Magazine, but they offered me to be in the magazine. And I said, oh, I don't want a job. I want to be in the magazine. So I ended up working with the photographer whose section that was. This isn't the part yet. I was walking down the street when the magazine came out, and I was so proud. And actually, in the magazine, I am imitating Josephine Baker. And
Mm.
I mean, I had real stuff, hair, banana skirt, the works. I'd already met Jean-Claude Baker. We had already discussed me doing some kind of nightclub act there. But anyway, I was walking down the street and I saw Tom Hanks. And I was like, I thought he might appreciate this because he was someone that's character-like and all that. I followed him. And I had the magazine. I went to his hotel. Well, this hotel was on Madison Avenue, and I was like on Broadway, but I followed him for blocks and blocks. When he went into this hotel, I realized it was a mecca for celebrities to stay at. But I was friendly with the doorman, who happened to look like Burt Reynolds, by the way. Anyway, I was talking to him, and I said, is there any way that I could get my magazine, pictorial to Tom Hanks? And he said, Joan, he said, I do it, but he said, I could get fired.
Mm.
So I said, okay. And the next day I went because I was seeing if I would see Tom Hanks walk out the door. So Burt Reynolds, the doorman, said to me, he said, Joan, I'm going to do it for you. So he said, sign it and put your phone number. So I signed it and put my phone number. I gave it to Burt Reynolds. Somehow I went the next day or something, and he told me, he said, I knocked on Tom Hanks' door. I brought him coffee, and I brought him your Interview Magazine, and I had it already open to your page. And he said, I brought him, and him and Rita were in there in the hotel. And he said, I brought it to them. And he said, I said, what happened? He said, oh, he did it. And he just closed the door as he was looking at the magazine. It's like, oh my God, Tom Hanks is going to come for me, right? Well, I go the next day and I'm talking to the doorman. Jackie Kennedy walks up, says hello to him, like he knew everybody. All of a sudden, I had my back turned to one side of the street. He said, Joan, he said, you can't see this, but here comes Tom Hanks. I was so flipped out that when Tom Hanks came up, I couldn't even look at him. I don't know why. I
You're
couldn't
taking
look
it
at
all the
him.
way down the field.
I couldn't say hello. Nothing. Tom Hanks was talking. He kind of looked my way, but I realized later he probably wouldn't have recognized me in the magazine because I did look like Josephine Baker. But the point is that I couldn't say anything to him. I was paralyzed with
Mm.
fear. I
Mm.
don't know why I was so paralyzed with fear, but I was. And then he went off, and I never got the phone call.
Oh, no. But when you meet him now, you'll be able to tell him.
Oh, I'll tell him. But I feel like that was an opportunity that had I just been able to introduce myself and, talk, you got my magazine article from Burt Reynolds. And
Mm.
I feel like if I had approached him, I don't know if he would have called or would have taken it like, oh, she'd be perfect for this part. But I would have felt like, I don't know, that I had the courage and the guts to kind of believe in myself and what
Mhm.
I was doing. It was more about what was going on for me than it was getting a part in a movie. I just thought he would appreciate it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
He didn't.
So many good that oh my gosh, so much beautiful, beautiful shares.
And spontaneous.
Yeah. Well, and
It
also
wasn't
chutzpah.
planned.
Also chutzpah, right? Like that's just
I,
ballsy. Like, hey, wait a minute. But chutzpah out of passion too, right? It wasn't
yes,
like you were like,
yes.
where is Tom Hanks staying? You're like, oh, my heart is full. I see Tom Hanks. I must do this. But then I
And I
have to
thought,
keep on doing it, right? Yeah.
but I will say this, and this is the good news. That situation led me to bigger situations where I took risks and maybe
Because you
they
knew
did
what it
work.
felt like when you didn't. You knew what it felt
Yeah,
like when you
yes.
didn't come
And
through.
I
Yeah.
appreciated myself to a certain degree that I was even remotely chasing Tom Hanks.
So kids, just stalk celebrities. That's it. No, don't stalk celebrities.
That's the lesson.
But don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to speak to people
Yes.
because you are you and they are they. Like
Yes.
that's the moral of a story. If you had just spoken to
Yes.
them and said, "Hey," and then said
Yes.
something about bananas, really, I
And
have
been
one in my
normal.
skirt. Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
Absolutely,
interesting.
Tish. Thank you for
Yeah.
that analysis.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. Let's see. How long? Well, it seemed like 20 seconds, it sounds like, from your story. But how long from starting VO to making your full-time living from VO? But I shouldn't make that assumption
Oh.
because just because your demo got you the opportunity doesn't mean that you're making
It
your
got me paid
full-time
right
living.
away. I
Okay,
I was full-time right away.
awesome. Great, great, great. So
Oh, I
good.
did have a side job, but I had one before VO and I just didn't know if I should leave it. And every once in a while I'd ask my agent, can I drop my job now? And she'd say, let's wait for another
Okay, so
commercial
so
or
what was
something to come in.
so what was that time frame? Because that's what I'm talking about. That's the
Oh,
part that we all don't. It can be rare, like maybe the first thing you book is a big old national commercial and
and it
runs for
was.
100 years. Yeah, but
Right,
but you were
right.
still like your
But I
agent was
still,
like, but
yeah,
things
'cause I
things
really didn't
change, things
know. I
don't
really
run.
didn't know the business, right? But I did book a commercial right away. And it was
Mm-hmm.
a national commercial and it lasted for 2 years. And I
Uh-huh.
still asked her, I said, is it okay that I leave my job, do you think? And she said, no, I'd keep it because it was a part-time job.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't a full-time job. It was a part-time job and it didn't disrupt auditions.
Yeah.
It didn't disrupt, getting bookings. So I did keep the job. But then I started teaching. I had an opportunity that fell in my lap and I took it. So
Mm-hmm.
I always had teaching, but it's not like teaching like full time, I had to give up.
Right.
I didn't have to give up anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I gained because I was teaching. I gained
Right.
more about the industry. I
Exactly.
brought in industry players and no one was doing that in New York at the time.
Yeah.
So I I can say I when
So a
I
couple of
booked right
years,
away.
like a
Yeah,
couple of
I would
years.
say a couple of years.
Yeah. See that I
Yeah.
think that's really, really important, even when the ta-da, it's happening.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
There's still that I always say it's
You know,
like we're weaving voiceover into the rich tapestry of our gorgeous life, and it takes a
yes.
while to run that thing back and forth so that voiceover is the thing that we're doing. So
Yep.
it takes a little while to just
It does. It
yeah.
merging takes a while and it can be bumpy. So
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. How about you, Rudy? It sounds like you got a good job right out of the bat, right?
yeah.
Well, it
Like
did. I wouldn't say right out of the bat. I did do some. I did pound the pavement, I mean, I tried jobs as a photographer. I worked in a group home uh,
Mhm,
right out of
And
college,
he made
working
dinner
with
for them and breakfast. I could never do that.
mhm,
yeah, working with
yeah,
wayward boys. 10 of them, 8 of them were bigger than I was, and
mhm,
it felt a little bit like being in a prison. But I tried a few things before I
mhm,
finally landed a job that was regular. And in that job, the editing job, it was I was a union editor and it was
mhm.
freelance. So a project ends and you're waiting for the next director to come back with another project. So
Right,
there
right,
was
right.
some uncertainty there. But the idea of like how long between the time you started studying, for example, to the time you started working is different for everyone, and it
Mhm,
doesn't really have a lot of meaning, I don't think.
mhm,
It's really about when you do connect, and even if you're doing other things at the same time, that love that you have for the specific thing, say voice acting, as long as that desire is being met on some level,
mhm.
then I just think you're good to go and you're on your way. And whether you
Yeah.
stay with that or there's a shift and you say, you know what, I want to direct voice actors or be a
Mhm,
talent manager instead of doing the voice acting. I love that more. Then that's fine too. So
mhm.
it's an interesting question. How long between here and there? Uh, it's not the same as say the question between when you started college and when you finished.
No,
You know,
no, no.
there's a set sprint. Okay, it's going to take
Right,
me 4 years,
right,
unless I take some time off. But with other pursuits, it's different. Voice acting, acting, the arts, it's definitely a very different
Yeah.
kind of
The
dynamic.
arts.
Yeah.
Right.
We talk about everybody having their own gestation period, and it may seem
Yes.
like
It's
Yeah.
just the equivalent of how, you could talk to five different people and how they broke into the industry will be five different complete ways. And
Mhm.
all ways are legit,
Yeah, exactly.
right? And
Exactly.
also all ways can't necessarily be manufactured again by somebody
Yeah.
else.
Exactly.
And what you
Exactly.
don't want to do is compare yourself to someone else on that level.
Yeah.
Right.
So many levels, really. You don't want to get into that comparative mind thing. But that's one of those places where I can see someone saying, "Oh, it just took her a year. I've been at it for 4 years. Something's wrong with me."
Right.
Don't go
Right.
down that road
Yeah.
if you can
Not
help it at all.
a question we ask here, and
Right.
that helps who, how? Hmm. Okay, that's not helpful.
Helps. Wow.
Um, um,
Yeah.
what are you guys proudest of in your voiceover career? Because there's so many amazing things that you've
There
accomplished
is. Oh
and
my God.
created. What would you say you're most
For me,
proud
it's
of?
SOVAS.
Yeah.
It's creating this organization that really and truly seeks to reach out to the entirety of the voiceover community to
Mm-hmm.
find a way. And we have somehow, well, there was an intentionality to it, but there's a part of me that wants to say that we almost stumbled into some aspects of it because they were unexpected. We didn't know that they would grow in the way that they would.
Mm-hmm.
And one of those being the global nature of it.
Yeah.
When I watch our show, when I watch the award show especially, and I see all the cultures from around the world attending this one event, it feels a bit like the Olympic Games to me,
Right.
and
Right.
where everybody's sharing and
Yeah.
appreciating the different colors and flavors
Mm-hmm.
and cultures that come through in our voices and in voice
Yeah.
Yeah.
acting. So that is, you know, the thing I'm really extraordinarily proud of. But the
Mm-hmm.
next level of that is to see a successor take it on and
Mm.
take it to new levels.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope I'm around for that and that I can sit back and watch that.
Yeah.
Lovely.
Then you'll hear something different. Then you'll
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
definitely, because we're always in I always say no, where our noses are to the grindstone. They're
Right.
always to the
Right.
grindstone. Even
Yes.
when we're on a vacation, our noses are still to the grindstone.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
But I agree with Rudy. I think it's been Society of Voice Arts and Sciences. I am
Mm-hmm.
also going to say that it stretched me like nothing else has ever stretched
Mm.
me mentally, even emotionally.
Mm.
Uh, it has stretched me beyond anything I thought could ever be
Ooh,
stretched
wow.
within my. I also think it is by far the most challenging thing I've ever done and
Mm.
taken on and molded. There's no question about it.
Mm-hmm.
It does bring me a lot of joy, especially with results that people write us, that people videotape themselves, the joy that it's brought to so many different cultures in my wildest dreams, right?
Mm.
But it also takes every bone,
Right.
and I mean bones that I didn't know I had.
Yeah.
So it's also a challenge every single day. And that's not easy to, I think, deal with
Yeah.
every
Well, it
day.
sounds the way you speak of it, it sounds like birthing and raising children, actually. Like the way
Ah,
you said
okay.
it
yeah,
stretched me beyond anything that I could even
Yes.
comprehend. And then you have to do
Yes.
it every single day.
Single day.
Or you have to
Yes.
keep on
Yes,
going and
Tish.
it keeps on
Yes,
requiring of
Tish.
you every single day. Yeah,
Yes.
that's powerful.
Yes.
yeah.
Powerful.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I agree with
It's very
Rudy.
much like that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the baby is 11 years old now.
Yeah. Right.
And
Yeah.
then we're
Right.
just talking about SOVAS because
We're
Right.
just
SOVAS
talking about
was
soapbox.
Exactly.
created to encompass that's voiceover and the
Hmm.
voice arts, of course, but that's voiceover existed before SOVAS.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And we
Right.
were doing that by
Your
itself
first
since
child. Your first child.
yeah.
You're right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly.
The eldest. Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
On the other side of what are you most proud of? What is your biggest fear or challenge in your voiceover career, either now or previously? Or previously and now, I guess we could explore because you had talked about fear impacting some
Right.
choices that you made. And then I think as we are evolving and as the things we do become braver and truer, that there's always that next thing that's like, ooh, what don't I know? Or maybe not, maybe not, maybe there's not, maybe fear has evolved. I don't know. What would you say for
Well,
you?
no, there's definitely some fears. I think I rarely talked about this. So, Rudy and everything that comes into SOVAS goes into the events because the costs are no one can actually imagine. So we're always raising money. That's
Mm,
all. Besides the day-to-day, that's also something that we're doing. So when Rudy and I, let's just say retire, if you want to call it that,
mm,
uh, it's not like we have money stacked up in a bank somewhere,
mm.
right?
I see what you're saying.
So
Yeah.
part of it is like what is going to happen when we retire in terms of finances.
Mm-hmm.
So that is definitely a fear.
Mm.
And I'm
That's
not sure we're going to retire, but you just never know what's around the bend
right.
that, health wise or whatever that is, that
Mm-hmm.
we may have to focus on that. And that's going to take money. And
Mm-hmm.
it's money we really don't have
Right.
because everything we do, including our own money, we put into SOVAS.
Mm.
So
Wow.
that definitely is a worry.
Yeah. Wow. That's very very true and vulnerable of you. Thank you for talking
Yeah.
about that. How about for you,
Yeah.
Rudy?
Well, I think it's I guess with regard to what we're actually doing here with SOVAS, it would be the threat of AI. And and part of that is to some extent a self-fulfilling prophecy with so many people so focused on the worst possibilities. And folks are already just sort of thinking in terms of where jobs are, how many jobs are leaving. And it depends on what country you're talking to as well, because in other countries, for example, Latin America, they're really seeing the impact of job loss.
Oh,
Uh,
really?
yeah,
Mm,
they're really seeing how the price they get for work has gone down dramatically, and the
mm.
amount of work that's going to AI trained systems has gone up.
Wow.
And the, if you look back, if you look over history at similar situations where new technologies and innovations taken over jobs from human beings. And we
Hmm.
used to have operators at switchboards connecting phone calls.
Right, right.
Uh, their union at that time was up in arms when people talked about a way to do that without those operators.
Hmm.
And there have, with all of those situations, if you look at history, and I took a look, the the technology always won out. There were cases where the technology was mitigated
Mm,
and some aspect of humanity remained for some good reason, but for the most part, uh, it was minor compared to the degree to which the technology eventually held sway over what people were trying to get done,
mm,
making things more efficient, making things more affordable, uh, like that. So the that's a big concern. It's up in the air. When I look
mm.
at the AI situation, I do feel as though the technology, in all likelihood, is not going to be the first one in the history of mankind not to win.
Interesting. That's sobering and also practical. Hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Hmm. Interesting. Interesting.
So
Yeah.
maybe right now, Tish, this is the first time I heard that from Rudy in terms of that particular worry. Trust me, I hear worries. I mean, that particular worry. And maybe I might have surprised him with that particular worry that I had.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That
Okay. That's what I
Yeah.
thought.
That's amazing. Well, thank you both for being so completely from the heart and true on the 21 questions. We got a couple more questions. I think these are probably uh more like yes
Unanswered.
or no. Yeah. Introvert or
Oh, okay.
introvert or extrovert?
Extrovert.
Extrovert? How about you, Rudy?
I'm a quiet extrovert.
Quiet extrovert. Excellent. Good, good, good. On the gradation. Yeah, interesting. I always find it fascinating getting to talk with a lot of people and recognizing how much this business requires that we find the middle. If we are this,
It's
then
true.
we have to do this, and if we are this, then we sometimes have to sit in a little box by ourselves, and sometimes we have to go talk to
Totally
all the
true.
people. Yeah. So,
I chose an extrovert because I do light up when I'm in front of people, but I trust me when I tell you, I am constantly thinking. I work with a therapist or a spiritual guide counselor, and I'm constantly combing through everything. But I would say I'm an extrovert.
yeah. No, I don't think introversion, I think it's how you or where you get your fuel from. Like
Yeah,
where you get
I get it
your
from the
fuel from
outside
people. Yeah,
sometimes. Yeah,
and we both are reflective. Yeah. Yeah.
but I like soft
Um,
extrovert. That's a great one, Rudy.
yeah.
That's a
Yeah.
great one.
Yeah. Um, this may be self-explanatory, but if you could do voiceover from anywhere, where would it be?
From anywhere?
Hmm?
Oh, Aruba.
Aruba. There we go.
Aruba.
How about you, Rudy?
Well, that actually matches. I was going to say good weather for one, a place where there's good weather and
Aruba.
great people. Yeah, and a thriving culture. And Aruba has all of that.
Okay, well,
Yeah,
see, now the
Aruba.
retirement plan emerges from the
Ah!
21 questions. There we go.
Hey, that's true, Tish. That's
I
true.
like it. I like it a lot. SOVAS Aruba. I see it. I see it. That's great. What would you say your voiceover motto is if you like had to
Well, it's
create a voiceover?
definitely my motto would be it's definitely about being unstoppable and what is behind that, as opposed to obnoxious, which I'm not talking about, or it's about being uninhibited
Mm-hmm.
and about being unstoppable because as we are talking in this conversation, there's just so many obstacles, life obstacles, your own obstacles, other people's obstacles that really can stop you. So it's about being a healthy version of being unstoppable.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also a healthy version of being an extrovert and an introvert, I think, too. Um, but that's what I would say. That's
Yeah.
my motto.
Being able to go
Unstoppable
in, so being able to go in as deeply as you're able to go
as you
out.
go out.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful.
Yes.
Love
Yes.
it. Unstoppable intro extrovert. Love it. Think good. How about you, Rudy? What would be your VO
That's a tough one for me. Find the joy in what you do.
Ooh, you made it sound easy. Like that.
Yeah. And
And, and,
beautiful.
and so resonates. Yeah. Find the joy in what you do. Yeah. Awesome. What is, this sounds like it might be a big question. What is a typical day for you guys? What is a typical, it's usually a voiceover day, but you said that, well, although you said you had like
I
four
do all
sessions
kind.
today,
Yeah,
so,
I
or
it's a lot
is
of it.
there for you a typical day? That might be a
A
bit a more,
typical day is hours of administrative work, hours. Also, a typical day has to either do with coaching privately or teaching classes.
mm-hmm,
Because I
hmm.
teach at University of Hartford, although I
Right,
do it
that's
on Zoom, and there's a setup at the school where it feeds into a theater at the same time it also feeds into their
oh,
studio. So,
cool.
but that takes hours
Mm-hmm.
weekly now. But uh, it's pretty intense. I have to plan when I go to the bathroom, put it that way. It is major intense. Also, there's social media work too that takes up some time. But it's a lot of administration work. It's a lot of connecting with people, reconnecting with people, pursuing people, writing letters, get pursuing sponsors. So I'm kind of putting that under the umbrella of administrative work.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And it's somewhat unwieldy because you can't put all of these
Yeah.
things on a schedule. Or when you talk about
Right.
pursuing
Right,
sponsors, for example, which is a
right.
big part of it, sponsors show up when they show up, and they determine the calendar. So
Yeah,
it's a all-in process that you're involved in, and you're constantly leaving one door a little bit ajar so you can hear when they show up while you work someplace else.
Yeah.
Being in front of the computer, organizing
Mhm.
conversations and meetings, and is one big part of it for sponsors. Another big part of the daily grind is curating the panels, because we don't just throw out a map and say, hey, anybody got ideas, come over here and jump on the stage and share. We think hard about what the community is asking for and who are
Mhm.
the people who can deliver on that, and as well as the people who have the passion for it
Mhm.
and really want to share in a way that's not to promote themselves as much as it is to give something away, to give something back to
Yeah.
the community, because that other thing's
Yeah.
going to take care of itself. You don't really have to promote when people see that you have something valuable to share. Uh,
Right.
they gravitate to that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Yeah. That's amazing. So a typical day is unstoppable. And the cool thing about hearing that is I think you guys do such a beautiful job, and it's so much the essence, there's an essence of what you do and how you do it that makes the SOVAS and that's for VO really special. And there is like a glamorousness to it because you've created an event that brings glamour to the day-to-day work
Yeah.
that we
yeah,
do. So it's also really,
Yeah.
really powerful to get to hear like, yes, Rudy and Joan are glamorous and fabulous, and there's also the day-to-day that is, there's nothing about what you said that sounded terribly glamorous.
Glamorous.
It
No,
sounds
it's not.
passionate, it sounds true, it sounds authentic, it sounds real, it sounds unstoppable, not necessarily
Mhm.
glamorous. So
No,
yeah.
that's,
not at all.
you're
I
not
once I
sitting there
once
in
posted a
a bar.
photograph of me.
Yeah.
I once posted a photograph on Facebook of me pushing a hand truck to the post office with awards, with packed awards on it, that I was taking to the post office for shipping. This was in the early years. We have a whole different system now.
Mhm.
And someone said, "Oh, you shouldn't have posted that picture. People shouldn't know what's going on behind the scenes." And I thought, this is what it is.
Yeah.
Right.
This is what it takes.
Yeah.
Right.
There's no shame in the game of building something from the
No,
Yeah.
bottom up.
and it's heart and soul.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
we don't really have the luxury of relying on people when when our nose is to the grindstone. It is me and Rudy nose to the grindstone.
Yeah. Yeah. Powerful. Well, knowing what, this is the last question. Knowing what you know now, what would you say to yourself at the beginning of your career?
Oh my gosh.
I know what
Thing
I would say.
is,
What
okay,
would
you do?
what would you
Yeah,
say, Rudy?
you do? Right.
You do?
Yeah, because I thought about what I would say to myself, maybe. And I would say don't focus on being better than the next person. Focus on being your best and
Mm.
appreciate whatever that turns out to be.
Ooh,
I'll
that's
take it.
that's a
I'll
graduation
take it.
speech there. Yeah. You need to get an honorary degree somewhere, clearly. That's beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah, it is, Rudy. And
Yeah.
I would say to little Joan or Joan at the beginning, don't get caught up in the darkness. There is light at the end of the tunnel, and that light is because of you,
Mm,
because of all you have put into it. Do
hmm.
not focus on the darkness. Focus on the light at the end of the tunnel, which is you, your creation.
You create. Wow. Whoosh. Oh my gosh, you guys, this has been absolutely brilliant and
Thank
wonderful.
you,
Thank
Tish.
you
Thank
so
you.
much for
That is
taking.
some VO dojo for your ass.
Yeah, we go deep, we go true, and we do what needs to be done. Yeah, no, that was amazing. So lovely to get to spend some time with you. And thank you so
Yeah,
much for sharing
thank you, Tish.
so from your heart. It's, I'm not surprised that everything that you create comes so truly and deeply from your hearts. It's really, really powerful. So we'll look
Thank you,
forward
Tish,
to,
for
Yeah.
having us and for creating
Yes.
this amazing venue with these very special questions,
Yeah.
and just the
Yes.
concept of VO Dojo and taking the
Yes.
spirituality of our lives deeply
I
into
love
account.
that.
It's very
yeah.
That's my
special.
favorite part. Yeah. But
Yeah.
Tish, you are truly a beautiful inside and out,
Oh, thank you.
up to down person, soul. You are a beautiful human being, and that's what colors everything
Thank you.
about this.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I'll look
Thank
forward
you.
to you guys joining us for Ask the Sensei, and we will answer questions that other people have about their
Okay.
careers and where they're
Oh,
at.
that's great.
How I always like to look at one of the things that I say on Ask the Sensei is, what is a question like, where are you feeling stopped, or what is stopping you, and what is a question
Uh-huh.
that we can help you get through or go through or shine your light on. So yeah, we'll look forward to having you guys.